Hey everybody, what the heck is going on with Harvest Toasts in our community? It is crazy right now. This video is going to hopefully explain to people what is going on. Why is there so much, I'm going to call it friction. And for those of you who are contemplating getting a membership, whether or not I think it's worth it or not. But first, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jennifer Preston, and my husband Michael and I are the OG of Happier Campers. We got our HC1 in 2016, and we currently have an HCT. This channel is really for people who are interested in the Happier Camper brand, getting a little more insight into what it's like to own one, as well as for folks who are maybe thinking about camping and you're not sure if you can do it. We bought our HC1 never having camped before, and if we can do it, you can do it. But today, let's talk about this crazy situation around the Harvest Host community. Let's go. Okay, this is going to be organized into the three things that I think are driving some of the strangeness in the community, a recommendation on what I think that you should do. But before I get into any of that, please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps folks find our videos are a little bit easier. Okay, so our three categories are tiers, pricing, and the language around the Harvest Host stays. Here we go. Okay, let me give you some history first. And I say this from the perspective of someone who became members of Harvest Hosts and Boondockers Welcome in 2016. So those were separate entities back in the day. Very different business models. Harvest Host was a pay-it-forward model, and Boondockers Welcome was a free model. So what does that mean? So a pay-it-forward model of Harvest Host was when you signed up, you were given access to a map that showed farms, wineries, distilleries, small community, museums. And the idea was that you would stay, I think it was limited to one night, and you would stay there and buy something in their local shop. That was the expectation. I think at the time it was like $20. Spend $20 in their shop, their farm stand, whatever it was. And that way, you were just helping them out. I mean, these were all small businesses. We all want the small business community to flourish. It felt great to be a member of Harvest Host with that intention. Boondockers Welcome, totally different. The idea was you had access to a map, and that map reflected properties where people would say, hey, I've got some land, and happy to have people who are coming through camp there. I don't know that it was limited. In fact, I'm fairly confident you could just work out with the owner how many days you wanted to stay, and they would let you know if that was going to work for them. But it was free. Now, when we did those stays, we normally brought some things from like our hometown. Like I would have something that was from Boston, maybe a stuffed lobster. I don't know, making it up. But like I'd have something with me and I would leave it as a guest for the people who were hosting us for boondocking. And we were hosts as well. And that was interesting because we lived in Quincy, Massachusetts, and all we had was our driveway. But we were a very close walk to the train line that goes into Boston because we're basically a suburb. And we were a very popular place to stay because there's no campgrounds around Boston, really. And it made it easy for folks to explore the city. And we loved it. We met some really nice people doing that. And people would ask us, like, why you're crazy? Like, why would you allow someone to stay on your property for free? And, it just didn't, I don't feel like everything in life has to be transactional. That's why. And it was really nice to do something nice. There was a guy who we're pretty sure was a serial killer. I probably should do a video about that sometime. But yeah, with the exception of that one guy, everything was great. So you've got these two really different business models. 2018, I think it was then, Harvest Host buys Boondockers Welcome. And so begins what I would say the start of the chaos. So let's talk about the tiering. I'm going to explain how it works, how it's a little bit crazy, what really bugs me about it, and then we'll talk about pricing. So tiering. If you were to become a new member right now, and I'll insert a picture here so you can see what it's positioned as today. It is the basic package is Harvest Host, right, which is access to farms, wineries, distilleries, small community museums. And that is the pay it forward model. The next tier is called something like Harvest Host and Boondockers Welcome, which means I think there's like 3,300 boondocking locations that are signed up. And so for some extra money, you get access to those additional locations. Those locations are free. Now, I'm sure in Harvest Hosts, the company's mind, you folks will pay more to have access to a longer list, especially if a big portion of that list is actually not going to be charging them. The third tier is the all-in, inclusive of both Harvest Host, pay it forward, Boondockers Welcome, free, plus golf locations. So if you were, maybe living out of your RV and you had your clubs with you and you always were looking for a place to play golf, that might really be interesting for you because you could have that membership and you could camp at the course and then you could, actually play there. Okay, so those are what I believe today are the three tiers. I will say, again, this is where it can get complicated. As a legacy member of both sites, when my count was converted, this is the only thing I can think of for why I see what I see. I don't see those tiers, right? And I know this because I posted my tiers in a Facebook group on this topic and said, here's what I'm seeing. And people were like, well, where's the Harvest Host and Boondockers Welcome tier? Because I didn't even see that. I was like, what are you talking about? I had to go look online to find that. So I see something different as a legacy person when I click on upgrade my account. I'm seeing a different thing. Now, it might be that it's just a bad digital experience. And I'm actually going to say it is not a good digital experience. I think that they've done a very poor job of bringing these two sites together and making sure that when you map out a user journey, that you're being directed to the right locations. That's a miss. That is definitely a miss. It should be fixed. But setting that aside, I see different tiers. I'm not really sure why. Now let's talk about pricing. Because when I posted my tiers to that Facebook group, I also included my pricing because I just assumed that was the pricing everybody had. And it is not. It most definitely isn't. I thought some people were going to lose their marbles. Apparently, that when Harvest Host bought Boondockers Welcome, they locked people into the original pricing tiers as when they joined, which is actually really great. Because if I renew every year, and I don't think I've had to renew because I was a host and I hosted for a certain number of times, you got the next year free kind of a thing, which is another complication. But, my basic package of just being a Harvest Host person, which is what they converted me to, I've got the old pricing, which is very, very attractive. So I will say that the pricing has gone up a lot in 8 years. And I think there's a lot of interesting questions right now being batted around as to why. It's almost 100% more expensive now than it was before. And people are asking well, how much value is now being delivered for that increase in price? Or is it just what the market will bear and it is what it is? I suspect if you asked Harvest Host, they'd tell you the latter. Here's my one problem with this, and it really bugs me. The middle tier, right? So you've got the basic package, you've got the package which is both Harvest Host and Boondockers, and then the third most expensive golf tier. That middle tier, which includes the Boondockers Welcome option, it is completely against the entire intent of what boondocking is all about. You have people who are gracious enough to put their property on a list where you can come and stay for free, and yet Harvest Host is monetizing that above and beyond a pay it forward model. I just think that's wrong. I think that if someone's willing to be kind enough to allow you to stay on their property for free, why is Harvest Host taking a big chunk out of your membership fee in order to grant you that access? I think that's wrong, and I think they should change it. I mean, I don't often say things that definitively, but that's how I feel about that. So that's tiering, that's pricing. The confusion around those, because online you're being shown different options for upgrades, two different tiers, and then the pricing is different depending on whether you were grandfathered in. But of all things, the biggest issue is actually the language around Harvest Toast. And I think this is based on a legal concern. So if you, man, if you are a new member, you go to the site, and like when you're looking at that Harvest Toast option, you see something, I'll put a picture here, but it effectively says you pay this membership fee that's annual, and you don't pay camping fees. You have access to all these properties. That is a true statement. And when you stay at those properties, and the language here is very specific, they recommend that you spend, it's now $30 at that business. And again, I'm going to say this language is new. It could be years old, but it's new to me. Or make a donation. $30 recommended purchase or donation. Well, guess what? The word recommendation is causing all the problems. So if I go to a farm and it's my first day, and I buy some eggs and some fresh vegetables, and I'm good to go, and the next night I go to another farm, and by the way, I spent $30 or more at the first farm, and I go to the second farm, and I'm staying there, but I just bought eggs and fresh vegetables. I don't need anything more. I look around, like maybe I try to buy something and spend 10 or 15 bucks. Hosts are very upset that you are not spending what they consider to be the minimum that you will be spending. But it's a recommendation. It's not a requirement. And so legitimately, people who are using the subscription model are like, well, look, I'm doing exactly what I think I signed up for. Hosts, on the other hand, are saying like, well, no, I expect the $30 minimum. So why the disconnect? Well, the disconnect is in the word recommend. I suspect that hosts are probably being told that they can ask for the $30. I mean, hosts can do whatever they want, but so why doesn't the Harvest Toast just change the language? I mean, how much easier would this be if when you signed up, you were told, yep, you're going to pay, I'm making it up, $85 a year for a subscription, and then you will spend $30 at each location where you choose to stay if it's a Harvest Toast. It's just required. You can expect the host is going to require that from you, and you should be signing up for that when you show up. Here's what I think's going on. If Harvest Toast were to change that language, I think hosts go from being a voluntary, happy to have you stay on my property, gray area, you're making a donation, right? To maybe being subjected to the local regulations around being a campground. I mean, there's a host who shared that they not only are requiring people to spend the $30 up front, they pre-bill the credit card so that they're guaranteed to get the money. Now, if it was a requirement and it was just discussed that way on their website and their marketing materials, that would be perfectly fine. But folks reacted to that who are people who are subscribers and are interested in staying at properties. They're like, well, how can you pre-charge somebody? It's not a requirement, it's a recommendation. And there you have it. That is the source of all the conflict. And I don't think it's going to get any better, because I don't think Harvest Toast can change that language without causing a problem for hosts. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want them to cause a problem for hosts, because I think this is a great option for people. And this goes to my recommendation. Is it worth it for you to be a member of Harvest Toast? And my answer is yes. If you camp enough, and maybe if you travel around enough. I think if I was more of a weekend camper trying to stay at state campgrounds or national parks in my area, I don't know that it would be worth it. But I think for most of us, it's probably worth it. You know, there's so many campers and so many people joined into the community when COVID hit. I just think that it's harder to get reservations in those state and national campgrounds now. So having that as an option, you pay whatever, let's call it $85 a year, and now you have access to all these Harvest Toast locations. Instead of spending 15, 20, $25 a night staying at a state campground, now you're going to pay 30. I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's a great option for people. Now, would I upgrade to Boondockers Welcome? I have a problem with this. I mean, it just really irritates me that, oh, I got a little puppy around. Really irritates me that Harvest Toast is making more money off of this. I mean, Harvest Toast is a really interesting model now because it's a bit of a cross between Costco and Airbnb. So Costco, right, you're going to have an annual membership, and then when you buy there, you know you're spending, it's been a long time since I did this business case, but I think it's like you pay cost plus 14% and never more than 14%, something like that. And so that, that membership gives you access to product at a very preferable price. And that's kind of what Harvest Toasts is, right? Pay that annual membership fee, and you get access to places to stay at a preferable price. It's also a little bit like Airbnb in that it's, anybody can host. If you've got a place for people to stay, it's a great opportunity for you to make a little bit of extra money. It's actually better than Airbnb because, how many times have you gone onto Airbnb to find a place to stay? And it looks like a nice place, great price, and by the time you go through your checkout process, Airbnb has hit you with so many fees that you're wondering if it would have just been better to stay at a hotel. So that is it. So I think that this problem's not going away anytime soon. I think it is completely within the control of Harvest Toast to fix the language on their site, but it will cause, I believe, knock-on problems for hosts, which could actually cause the whole thing to implode. So they're not going to change the language, is my guess. And I think that for most of us, it's totally worth signing up for this membership. If you have any questions, put them below. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I hope to see you out there camping soon. Take care.